Good morning, everyone. Just to make sure you're in the right room, this is the Talent in the Age of Social Business workshop. So if you're in the wrong one, feel free to leave. If you're in the right one, feel free to stay. I'm Andrew Grill. I'm the CEO of Cred. We're a company that looks at social media influence. Some of you may have heard of Cred. Who's here's heard of Cred? A few people. Anyone heard of Cloud, our competitor? A few more people. We're like them, just lots better. So I'm not going to talk a lot about Cred today other than how you can use Cred to actually evaluate talent. But I wanted to talk to you about social business. And you might think, well, I'm in the wrong room because I thought this was about social media. But I think I'm a bit tired of social media. I've been on LinkedIn since 2004. I've been on Twitter since 2007. I've kind of been there, done that. We don't have to encourage consumers anymore to tweet or to Instagram or to update their Facebook. We don't have to encourage them to interact with TV shows or complain on social media. What I think we can do is start to use social media to drive it further into the organisation, and that's when it becomes social business. It means then if we're using what's happening on social media to actually impact the company, it means we develop better products, we have better customer service, and ultimately we find better staff to recruit. So I think that's where the rubber hits the road, and that's why I'm very excited to talk about social business and certainly what we're doing with finding people. Whenever I talk, I always start with this slide, no matter what I'm talking about. So one day it won't be relevant, but luckily today it is. Social media is like real life. We've all had a coffee break out there. We've all been talking to people. We find in real life that we go and follow people that are interesting, and we go and talk to them, and we unfollow those that are not interesting. But also, I think as marketers and recruiters, sometimes we forget that this is really what it's all about. You can't use social just as another channel to say, we've got another channel to go and find people or to market to. So when you're out having a coffee break after my talk and someone comes up to you and 2 or 3 people are talking and another person joins the conversation, I always find out how long it takes to get invited into that conversation. Do I have something of value to say? When can I actually add value and become a member of that conversation? Now, if I was an advertisement, I'd walk up to you and say, buy my product. That's an ad, and you'd probably say, can you go away? We're having a good chat at the moment. But where you actually join a conversation for the first time and add value and are brought into that conversation, that's like social media. So whether you're marketing or recruiting or promoting something, social media is a different beast. You have to be able to add value to that conversation. So tweeting someone to say, hey, this is a great new job, for example, is going to be very, very unwise. There's a great video I'm going to play. It's only 90 seconds long. It's from a show the BBC had called The Revolution We Televised. It's been off air for quite a few months now. But it gives us an example of what not to do on social. Let's just have a quick look. Hi guys. Hiya. Can I be your friend? Can I be your friend? What? Yeah. Yeah. All my friends have got like 1,300 friends. I've only got 99. Because it's cool to have a lot of friends. Isn't it good to have lots of friends? Just like 4 or 5 good friends. Do you want to maybe look at some photos of like me with my mates and maybe like want to be my friend more? If I showed you some pictures of my life, it's really cool, you'd be a bit more interested. Sorry, I just poked you. Can I just poke you? Can I just poke you then? Not poke you? Just go away. This is when all my really cool friends threw a party for me, and it was really cool, and I had a really good time, and I looked really good. This is like me at a cool party with pretty girls looking cool. This is my friends playing this really cool game. You don't show any of your photos to strangers. What's wrong with you? Can I poke you? A lot of nervous laughs there, and I've probably shown this video 50 times now, and everyone, no matter which country I'm in, whichever language is their common, they laugh at the same points, because it's a nervous laugh saying, oh gosh, that's what we do. And if I had £1 for every time I saw a Facebook page from a well-known brand that said, complete this sentence, today is ... Or like if you're having a good day, I mean, that's not what you talk about in the pub or what you talk about in the staff room. So don't do it on social media, because the candidates that you actually want to attract are looking at that going, you guys don't get this space. And I want to actually deal with someone who gets this space, either someone who's brokering getting me into a company or actually the company themselves. And I look at companies. I do my due diligence on anyone I'm dealing with, and I'll show you some examples about how I really look at their bona fides on social. And if you do that sort of thing, you're not going to ever hear from me again. You'll also notice the bottom of most of my slides I've got a link. If you go to that short link, for example on this slide, social.bz/BMF, you'll actually get a link to that particular video. I'm also videoing this today, so if you do miss it or fall asleep, you can actually watch it again. So a bit about my journey. Anyone remember this PC, if you could call it that? This was my first computer back in 1980. Maybe the geek factor of this should be about 5. I started playing with this stuff a long time ago, and I think why Catherine asked me to speak today is that I'm really fortunate in that I'm 45 next month, so I'm old enough to be able to walk into a board meeting and talk board language about social stuff. I'm young enough to have been playing with this stuff for a long time, and I know when it breaks. And anything new, so Foursquare, for example, a few of you heard of Foursquare? I've been on Foursquare for a number of years trying to break it. And I have actually cheated on Foursquare to see how you can actually game the system. So I play with this new stuff. So when clients come to me to say, can we do that? Yes, you can. And things like those short links that use my brand, they're things I'm advising clients on as well. So I started my journey with a Sinclair ZX80. It had, I think, 4 kilobytes of RAM. It got very hot and you had to put it into a television. I then upgraded a couple of years later onto bulletin boards. Probably some of you have never seen this. So I can honestly say I've been online since 1983. Anyone here is younger than 30 in the room? Yeah? So I've been online longer than you've been alive. Really scary thought. That's what the internet, I suppose, 1.0 looked like, where you would actually dial up, leave a message, and then hang up and then ring up 5 hours later to see if someone had emailed you. In fact, I was on the internet, if we could call it back then, so often my parents had to get a second phone line. I was always on the phone. Andrew, get off the phone! Because I was on my modem to hook at it. And of course I did this through my Commodore 64. I found this shot the other day and it brought back beautiful memories. But that's kind of how you play with this stuff. And when the internet came about and when social came about, it was just a natural extension. I got really excited that as a marketer and as someone that's quite outgoing, I could actually use social to talk about what I'm doing. This is my website in 1999, pretty embarrassing. In fact, if it was live, you'd see things scrolling across and flashing graphics, all the things you had back then. I actually had this back in 1994, but I couldn't find an old enough shot. There's a website called the Wayback Machine, archive.org. You can type in a website, and this will actually show you what websites looked like all those years ago. So I've been playing with this stuff for a while. Actually started blogging in 2004. Ironically, one of my first blog posts was about LinkedIn. I was talking here on July 18, 2004 about the fact that I'd been introduced to LinkedIn. Back then I had 120 contacts. Woohoo! 120 on LinkedIn. That was pretty exciting back then. But again, I was actually introduced to LinkedIn at the time by one of my bosses, and he sent me this email saying you should try this out. And back then I thought, is this a pyramid scheme? But what I did, and what you can do on LinkedIn, is actually upload your contacts. And back in 2004, there were 32 people that I knew that were also using LinkedIn. And those 32 were the sort of people that should have been using it. So I thought, well, this is for me. And I've never looked back. And a lot of you I would know, who here is not on LinkedIn? Okay. I'm going to show you also how to pimp your own LinkedIn profile and also to look at what candidates should be doing to pimp their profile in a few moments. Twitter also allows you to go back and look at early tweets. So some of my tweets in 2008 were fairly lame. January the 1st, 2008, relaxing at home on New Year's Day, updating my blog, getting ready for a family walk. I think my tweets are a little bit more exciting than back in 2008, but it's interesting to see what we were using social for. In fact, back in 2007, 2008, I used to hang out with these people that were real social media geeks. And what we were hoping is that in a few years' time, brands would take us seriously. And we got our wish. Brands now take social almost too seriously, and they've now said, well, we're just going to use it as another marketing channel. And so what I'm trying to instill to everyone I talk to is don't just think of it as another marketing channel. It's a conversation device for whatever you use it for. So I also show this slide all the time, and it's actually relevant to today's talk because we're talking about consumers, but we could also look at candidates or people looking to recruit. The old way of marketing is the marketing funnel, awareness, familiarity, consideration. We all know that. In fact, this is from a survey, or a study rather, that McKinsey did back in 2009. And they looked at how the marketing funnel has evolved from the funnel, and they're now saying it's a loyalty loop. But let me introduce you to not just the consumer of the future, but the candidate of the future. Her name is Madeline Grill. She's 7 years old. She's my beautiful daughter. This photograph was taken some months ago at a Starbucks. We'd been swimming for her swimming lesson, and her little treat was I got my coffee and she got to play with the iPad. And what she's doing here, and why I took a photograph, I said, what are you doing, Madeline? I'm looking at the reviews for this game, Daddy. It's really good. We should get it. pet tree house. It's fantastic. All the reviews are good. We should get it. I said, why are you looking at the reviews? Well, Mummy looks at Amazon reviews before she buys something, so I'm looking at my reviews. So here is a 7-year-old. Luckily, the reviews are pretty tame. Here is a 7-year-old that is looking for outside reviews and recommendations about an app. Now, when she grows up and starts wanting to find a job, she's not going to look at job ads or job boards. She's going to ask her friends, what's the coolest company to work for? How do I get to know someone at that cool company? Now, she's very fortunate because she has a father in me that I know what I'm doing, and so I'm going to arm her. She already has her own Twitter page, her own website, her own email address, her own iPad. I mean, she's got all the bits and pieces she needs. She just needs to grow up to actually use them all. But that is the consumer and the candidate of the future, and they are going to be a lot smarter. And right now, the ones younger than some of the 30-year-olds in the room are called the millennials, and I'll talk about those in a moment as well. They had to be watched out for because they are super smart, and they are the C-suite of the future. So what McKinsey said in 2009, it's still relevant now, for consumers and I think also for recruitment, is the consideration set, actually consumers are so confused they put less things in their consideration set because there are so many choices. What they do is they use this large evaluation loop to go out and find out what they should buy or which company they should look for. And this is where social media comes into its own. So in this evaluation phase, this is where people like me go out to my network and say, what do you think of product X? What do you think of company Y? And that's what you need to be aware of, because I no longer look at ads. When I'm buying a product, I don't believe marketing because I'm a marketer. I know how the science works. So why am I going to look at something that someone's told me I need when I'm going to look at something that someone else has actually used?
Can I just clarify, are you okay for us to tweet these pictures?
Please, this is all perfectly fine. I'd love you to. And I'll also give you a link to the slide deck and you can have it all. I'm very transparent. Everything I'm talking about today is on the record. I'm going to put the video online, so it's all okay. But obviously to credit McKinsey because that's who published it. The loyalty loop then happens because when I've chosen what I'd like, whether it be a product or a company, I then become very loyal. And this is where influence comes in, which we work on at Cred. And so if you get someone into that loyalty loop, that's magic. They're bringing other people into it and you want to keep them in there. So the challenge is, how do you actually find these advocates, whether it be for a product or a company or a service, and keep them excited? How do you keep and retain employees would be the way to look at it, versus me still buying the product. That is absolutely relevant now, even though it's from 2009, and whether it be marketing or recruitment, I think it's still very, very valid. Now let me tell you a personal story about influence. Everyone's heard of EE. Being the geek I am, I wanted to, back in October, be one of the first people to get one of the new 4G services. So I went to my EE store and signed up. And what happened next was very interesting because they sent me the wrong SIM card, not once, not twice, but 3 times. So I did all the right things. I rang customer care and they said, well, you need to wait 24 hours for the SIM to activate. 24 hours later, still not working. Now, I used to work for a mobile operator, so I know that something was wrong. Oh, we sent you the wrong SIM. We sent you a T-Mobile SIM, not an EE SIM. We'll send you another one. You can imagine what happened next. So I tweeted. And my tweet simply said, hey, at EE, so want to go to 4G, but have been stuck at 0G since yesterday. And a nice photograph of my no service. Any idea what happened next? No, something happened, but probably it would have been better if nothing had happened because they tweeted, hey, at Andrew Grill, if you tweet either Orange Helpers or T-Mobile Help, we'll sort it out for you. This is not best practice. This is not a social business because they didn't know that Andrew Grill is a brand new EE business customer. Yes, they have other brands, but they had no idea who I was. So I got really annoyed and I did a blog post. My blog post is still there. If you Google EE fail, it's the #1 thing that comes up. And the blog post pretty much said, don't move to EE just yet, they're not ready. That got some attention. And this was on a Saturday night I blogged this. And by Monday morning, EE's PR team were in touch and they said, you know, we're trying to calm the guy down. He's had lots of views and tweets are flying around. And I said, look, I'd like to meet your CEO, Ole Swanty, because I've got some advice for him. I run an influencer company and I think I'm an influencer. I can probably help you out of this. Okay, come into Paddington, which I did. So I met head of brand, head of network, head of PR, head of something else. He said, look, Andrew, Olaf's really busy next door in the board meeting talking about your blog post. He can't meet with you today. So this is actually what happened with the blog post. So the Telegraph picked it up on the Monday. They credited me. Once people started hitting that link, the traffic to my blog went from my friends to large organisations going, should we move everyone to 4G? Maybe just not yet. So normally I get 200 to 300 hits a day. That went through the roof. Social shares were all-time high. This was a pretty popular post. And so what I said to them is, you need to actually find some influencers. In fact, if you'd done this before the network had launched, you wouldn't have had these problems. So I thought, let's ask for something that I don't think they'll give me. I said, you need to find 5 people and give them a device and let us talk about it. And they went, okay, can you do that? Yeah, I can. This has nothing to do with cred. This is something I did off my own back. So these are 4 of my friends. I know who they are. They're personal friends. But also, I knew that if they were going to test this, it would be a real test for EE. So what EE did, to their credit, is they said, okay, we're going to give you a device. So this iPad here is a free iPad from EE, thank you very much, and 12 months of 4G service, and I'm one of their advocates. So not only did I get a free iPad out of it, so did my friends. And we then found that people that had also had problems started blogging saying, hey, what about me? I'm having problems. And then we fixed his problem by using the back channels, because I now have a direct link to their PR team. We actually started to use some of the back channels to fix problems. And a mate of mine, Stephen Waddington, some of you may know him, he had a problem as well. And rather than blogging about it, I threw that into the back channel and it was sorted. Now, it shouldn't have had to involve me to sort it, but you know, we're now getting things happening. And then people were blogging about whether their advocacy program was crazy. And then I got a call from Sky News saying, we'd like to do a piece on the 4G auction, can you come on the show? And I actually did this via Skype from Switzerland when I was there. So some guy you've never heard of, got a free iPad from EE, he's been on Sky News, got on the Telegraph. So this influencer thing, this social thing, really can have an impact. And imagine how that would happen with their brand. So if I'm recruiting with EE and I go, these guys don't get social, either it's an opportunity to say, I think I can go in there and help them. And to their credit, they had 2 people on their Twitter stream. Now they have 50 across the 3 brands. But there is some real work to do there when people like me can have simple problems go out of hand. We all remember what happened to United back in 2009. A guy called Dave Carroll blogged about his guitar being thrown on the ground. United ignored him for 9 months. He said, I'm going to write 3 songs about you. The first one was United Breaks Guitars. Back before Psy, 12 million views was a pretty good number. And what happened to United was their stock price fell by $180 million. So this influencer thing really does work, and it works in a positive way because you can get people talking about a great company or a service. It can work in a negative way, and still brands are not sure how to handle these influencers and what we should do. Let me talk about your own brand. 2 aspects here. First of all, as a candidate, this is what candidates should be doing to get on your radar. But secondly, you should be doing this yourself so people find you as an opportunity to be that broker between. So I'll use a brand I know a little bit about, me, because I know about my brand and my social footprint. So if you Google me, I've been online forever, and so I own the front page of Andrew Grill. Actually, I'm finding on LinkedIn, now there are about 6 Andrew Grills now on LinkedIn. There were only 3 a few years ago, not that they've already appeared, but people are now becoming more used to using social. So you can see there my website comes up, Twitter helps there, LinkedIn is there, and then the other properties there. So the more social networks I'm on, they're doing the SEO, and so LinkedIn and Twitter are doing their job to actually help me be found. Now, my name is not too unique. There are 5 or 6 of us, but I'm owning the front page. Now, if you're a resourcer or you're a company looking to hire me, the first thing you're going to do is type my name into Google. And I want to have control over what actually happens there. Now, I know what I'm doing. So I don't do any tricks. I just write good content, and I've been online for a long time. So Google actually favours that. So if you've got the other trick is if you have a domain name and you extend it for more than a year, Google is going to see that that domain's been around a while and is going to be around for a while. So I extended myandrewgrill.com for 10 years. So Google sees that and goes, well, this is a real domain. Someone's paid a lot of money to have that domain. So we're going to rank that. You'll also notice that my mugshot is against there. Google Plus, while people laugh at it, is an amazing platform because what I've done here, on Google Plus, I've said andrewgrill.com is one of my domains. And on my website, there's a bit of code called the author rel tag, which I'm happy afterwards to talk about. That basically says to Google, this really is me. So what it does is any of the content that I've authored, this is called author rank, and Google actually lists it. So you're probably more likely to look at the top listing because it's got a mugshot there to almost say this really is Andrew Grill's content. So Google Plus, while it may not be very popular, Google own it and they run the search results. So by having you on Google Plus actually allows you to almost claim content as your own. So if I write on other blogs, I can do the same thing. And so if you search for me on the Cred blog, it'll actually come up with me as the author. And this, again, I think is a nice way to check that someone has actually written that. The e-tap, this is something I coined, so it's not something you'll read about. But when I'm looking to talk to someone or I'm expecting someone to talk to me, I look for a couple of things. I call it sort of the e-tap on the shoulder. So when I'm looking to talk to someone, I do 2 things. I follow them on Twitter, and you then get an email saying someone's following you on Twitter. Oh, that's interesting. In fact, Fleming is following me because on Friday we're doing a Google Hangout together, and we've never met, and he's decided to start following me to see what I'm about so he can do some research. The second thing is I look at someone's LinkedIn profile, and guess what happens? I then can see that someone's looked at my LinkedIn profile. This is my guilty pleasure every day, reverse stalking to see who's looked at my profile. I have it bookmarked. Every day I click it to see who's looking at me. Maybe it's a bit weird, but I enjoy it. Interestingly here, some people want to be found. So Dino wants me to know that I've seen his profile. LinkedIn member, no idea who that is. Not going to help me in terms of if it's someone I want to look at my profile. I'm not sure why some of these people looked at me, but sometimes I can work out I've just contacted them or I'm expecting them to contact me. So if I see someone has followed me on Twitter and looked at my profile and I get an email or a phone call, I am more open to that contact because they've done their research. And I do the same. When I Google someone now, I Google their name and the word Twitter because I want to see if they have a Twitter profile. I also look on LinkedIn. So I look whether people actually have Twitter listed on their LinkedIn profile. If they don't, and they claim to be in a digital role, they go down 3 or 4 marks in my estimation. Because if you're in a digital or a social role, and you haven't done something as simple as put your Twitter bio on your LinkedIn profile, I'll actually mark you down. Now, you all know that you can actually set your visibility on LinkedIn. Here I've set mine to the highest. I think it's the default. It basically says, when I look at your profile, it says it's me and the company I work for. The other levels are someone from somewhere or anonymous. What I do is I set it to the highest level. I want you to know I'm looking at you. And I leave it set that way because it's a bit like that tap on the shoulder. I want you to know that I'm doing my research. So that's what I do. I basically Google someone's name in the word Twitter to see whether they actually have a profile. And it's surprising when someone says they're head of social media and they have no social footprint. I go, wow, this is going to be interesting. LinkedIn also is amazing because it allows you to put content there. So again, I'm looking at my LinkedIn profile, so I'm not upsetting anyone. You can add photographs, videos, brochures, anything you like. So I'm recording this today. I now have about 100 videos of me presenting. Some are good, some are bad. I put the good ones on my profile. So my main profile, I've got 5 videos of me presenting. And then for each of my roles where I have some content available, I put it up there. Now, 2 things. I think it actually provides a more visually appealing look to my profile. There's the second page of it. There's some brochures. Even me with much more hair back in 2000 doing a webcast for Telstra. As a candidate, I'm basically saying I get this space. I want you to see my body of work. I'm proud of what I've done, and I want to give you the other way to see what else I've done. And I'm expecting you, if you're looking to recruit me, to watch some of that. Not that I think you have to sit through hours of me presenting, but it gives you an idea of what I'm about. Everyone's LinkedIn profile is the best representation of them. You need to look beyond LinkedIn to see what makes me tick. What do I talk about on Twitter? What do I blog about? Who mentions me? Do I have some credibility out there in the social sort of space? So whether you're a recruiter or a candidate, you can now start jazzing up your LinkedIn profile to do that. It's very easy. In fact, LinkedIn makes it so simple. You basically put the URL there, and if it's a video, it'll automatically embed that. It does it all for you. So it's very, very simple. I talked before about these millennials. Millennials are probably 22 to 25, maybe a bit older, and Telefonica and the FT did a really interesting study a few months ago about these millennials. They did a global study looking at what young people are looking at next. Now, the millennials are the leaders of the future. They are very tech savvy, they know what they want, and in 10 years' time, they will be leading companies. So, yes, you can go and find people that are immediately suitable for roles. You should also be looking at that new wave of talent because they get this space. Right now, there's a challenge in social business and social media. The C-suite doesn't get this. I think as an industry, though, my industry, we have ourselves to blame because we pitch to the C-suite in terms of followers, likes, all those sort of technologies and terminology they just don't get. What we need to do is pitch to the C-suite in things they understand, customer retention, ROI, product effectiveness, those sort of things. But I think we actually bombard them. So like I said, I'm old enough to be able to talk a C-suite language, but also understand the social stuff. When the millennials are in the C-suite, it won't be a question of, are we doing this? It's like, why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we moving fast enough? You can actually grab the survey there from this link, social.bz/millennials. And some of the findings were, they're optimistic about the future. They're very new media focused. They are completely at ease with technology compared to their peers. They all have the latest devices. They are playing with this stuff. And often people say, well, the C-suite, they're not using social media. Correct, but their 2 ICs are. Because their 2 ICs are the next wave and they are making sure that they are up to speed. They're probably millennials. So if you're recruiting for that next level down, the right people have to know this because it's coming at them like a train. And companies need to be prepared for social business because they can't just wait anymore. So you need to be finding candidates that actually get this space and openly and overtly prove to you that they know how it works. They're more influenced by technology, so you're probably not going to get them the usual way. You need to find other ways. You need to engage on their blog. The easiest way to get someone's attention is to write a comment on someone's blog to say, hey Andrew, I really like what you wrote. I then go, oh, that's interesting. Who's this person? I'm going to actually look at them. That makes me more welcoming to an approach from you. This was a billboard that I saw in Times Square back in 2001, talking about millennials being overeducated, underemployed and wildly optimistic. But if I cast my mind back 10 years to an ad that appeared in an Australian newspaper, this is around the dot-com crash, they were saying, you know, positions vacant, team leader for an exciting new e-business, successful applicants should be disloyal, break rules, resent authority, ignore punctuality and flout the dress code. CBD location, 150k plus options. That was 10 years ago, and that was in a major newspaper trying to say this new world is coming. 10 years later, nothing has stopped. I was that person back in 2011. I went from a big company like Telstra to lead a commercial property website, and it was my first CEO job and my first role running a company because I wanted that experience, and I was thrown in the deep end, and I was that guy. I loved that time then. So 10 years ago, that was me, although, no, I probably wasn't that toned back then. So Cred, the company I run, you can use Cred to actually look at candidates. So cred.com, it's free to join. You can actually look at any Twitter profile. We're very fortunate for the last 5 years, we've had full access to what they call the Twitter fire hose. Every single tweet in real time. We have 250 billion tweets that we've stored and indexed. So what Cred does is it looks at all of my tweets over those last few years and it gives me a ranking. So up there, my Cred score, my global Cred score is 928 out of 1,000. And my so-called outreach level is 8. That's a fairly good score. I have not tinkered with that. That is completely legit. No one changes my score. But it shows you a bit more about me. So you've looked at my LinkedIn profile, you've looked at my tweets. What's this guy talk about? Where does he have influence? So up there you can see marketing, non-for-profit, travel. There are areas that I talk about a lot and people think I'm influential. But what Cred allows you to do in this sort of Pinterest-style way is then look at the content that I talk about. What content is being retweeted? Here's another page here. Which content are people really interacting with? What content's being retweeted? So this gives you a free look at me as a brand. You can also use this on brands. If you type Starbucks in there, it'll show you the content that Starbucks is being known for and what content is working, what content is not working. So you can use these tools like Cred to actually do your due diligence on candidates and companies as well. So someone who says, you know, I really know my stuff about social media and they have a score of, say, 200, Cred doesn't think they really know what they're talking about. The sweet spot is above 750 is someone who really has some influence, and the outreach score 7 and above is a good number. So if you've got a candidate 700 above and 7 on outreach, there's someone that is in that sweet spot that they really know their stuff. So I want to spend the next few minutes about this whole social business because I want you to be aware of what it means so that when companies say, what are we doing about social? You need to go beyond just having a Twitter page and a Facebook page. You need to prepare yourself with candidates and infrastructure to be ready for social business. A couple of definitions here. I'm going to give 2 because I think both of them are valid. IBM produced a report about social business patterns back in April, and their view of a social business is an organisation whose culture and systems encourage networks of people to create business value. Quite broad. And this means both inside and outside using social. So outside, using all this data about the company, good and bad, to actually drive product decisions and hiring decisions. But internally, actually saying, let's actually form communities. Imagine an onboarding process where you actually use an internal community to keep people engaged. That first week, that first month of a new starter. How do you actually connect them? In fact, someone at IBM told me that they have a lot of people that use Macs, and Macs are not standard issue apparently at IBM, but guess what? Tech support don't support Macs, but they have a community of people that have Macs that actually support each other. So this is how you can use social media inside an organisation to keep people engaged. Now, the wrong way is to say, well, we've got the internal yammer, you have to produce 5 yams a day, that's your KPI. That's wrong. When people see real value, the value will be when Andrew keeps getting all the good jobs or the good leads and people go, well, how come Andrew's doing all that? Well, he's well connected. He's using his networks internally, using this social business stuff to stay connected. There's another really great report by a good friend of mine called Brian Solis from Altimeter Group, and they talk about the 6 stages of social business transformation. It's an easy read. I guarantee it won't waste your time to read that. And they define social business as the deep integration of social media and social methodologies into the organisation to drive business impact. This is where this social stuff gets buried deep inside an organisation and the C-suite see the needle move because something's working. And I can guarantee you will enjoy that. What they found in the report, though, was that companies think they have they're doing social, but when you dig into it, 52% of the companies surveyed actually agree that their top executives are aligned. So 48% are not aligned. Now, this can be a bad news story, but for you, it can be a great news story to say, we're going to actually find people who get this space. We're going to help build an internal organisation that actually gets this new social stuff and actually make you successful. One of the quotes from the report was, many of our board members and executive leaders aren't even on Facebook. That's okay. I think some of my peers are trying to get the C-suite to use these tools. They're not going to. They're generally 55-year-old grey-haired males, and I can say that being male and 45. They're never going to get this. So why not surround them with people that do get it and actually encourage them and speak to them in terms that they understand? Uncoordinated efforts, the report said. What areas of a company are using social media? They looked at 600 companies, by the way. Marketing, corporate comms are using social, but it is sort of very spread out. So, companies are now at the stage where they're saying, this social media stuff, we've got to start harnessing this. We've got to have some governance. We've actually got to have someone owning this. So the people you're finding have to come into the organisation with a very disparate social strategy and actually start bringing it together. People that can do that need to know their stuff about social to be able to bring disparate groups together. The third thing was incremental funding. Interestingly, the report showed that even for large companies that had revenues of more than 10 billion, they're only spending about $1 million on social, which in the scheme of things is nothing. And the sort of full-time equivalents, 19, 20 people. They're not really doing a lot at the moment. They're going to have to. So the opportunity for you is to find these people that can actually do this. And this is a great diagram from the report showing the different stages from planning to be on social media right through to be fully converged. I wouldn't say any company is here yet, but the ones that you're going to be interested in are ones that are pushing beyond here. What happens around here, people have told me, is that people that hire in community managers, they get a phone call after 2 years to their headhunter, they say, this isn't working out. They're not investing in social. I've been here 2 years, I'm banging my head against a brick wall, they just don't get it, and they leave. So how do we get people to go beyond that chasm from engagement to formalise and actually have a structure? You've got to get senior people in there that get social and get how it actually works for an organisation that's structured. So what the report also shows is the different areas where social can impact. And the one that probably matters most to you is, besides recruitment, performance management, it leverages the enterprise social networks to track achievements and teamwork. And someone the other day said, well, how do you measure this stuff? We've got social media internally. How do you measure if it's actually working? And I said on stage, you gamify it. You make it fun. What we did with Ogilvy about 1.5 years ago is they came to me saying, we actually want to relaunch our new brand. We want to talk about social at Ogilvy. We want something that's sexy. The spin-off of that was they said, now we've done that, can we actually rank our own employees on social? Yes, we can. So this is actually a live board. If you can go to London, or go to the link there, but london.cred.com, we've actually got permission to add these Ogilvy employees there. And what they did over 12 months, they said every month the most improved, that increased their cred score by the most, got a free Kindle. And at the end of 12 months, the most improved actually got to go to a conference called South by Southwest in Texas, which is a pretty big deal. What happened was, when they launched this, they had about 20 or 30 members. The email went around saying there's some prize on offer. My inbox was inundated with people saying, I want to be on the list. Put me on this list. I want to be in with a chance. But it does two things. It telegraphs to the world that Ogilvy gets social. You've got some people up there like my friend James Watley, who has a very high cred score. Leo Ryman, who leads the group, very high cred scores. These people get social. And someone said, well, this is bad. This means recruiters can go and cherry pick. You can find them anyway. You don't need a list to find people. But this is a way you can gamify an internal experience and actually get people enjoying social and not doing it for a chore. There was a really good report by Capgemini from last year talking about how social technologies can really drive companies. I want to leave you with some of these thoughts so that when you're talking to clients about why they should be bothering about social beyond just Twitter and Facebook and the marketing team, this is where the rubber hits the road. They did a 2-year study. Why it's important is that they looked at companies' performance over 2 years. So it's not just a flash in the pan. What they saw was they could group about 600 companies again into 4 quadrants. Those that had high digital intensity, had very smart technology and were using social to their advantage. But most importantly, Those with transformation management, think culture shift. To be a digerati up in the top right, you had to have great tech and you are changing the culture to actually embrace all these social technologies. Banks are down here, mining companies, you've got tech companies up here, you've probably got fashion companies up in Fashionista where they're not quite there. And this was really interesting because they then mapped where all of these companies lay on a scatter diagram. And they saw that in terms of profitability, the digerati were 26% more profitable. In terms of revenue generation, up 9%. These are numbers that any C-suite would die for. How do we get there? We actually invest in social technologies going beyond just Twitter and Facebook and getting them deep into the organisation, and it actually does make a difference. So this report is something you can show someone you're pitching to say, if you recruit the right people, you can also have 26%. A couple of use cases. One of my favourite companies that's doing this right is Burberry. So just recently they released their first quarter results. They were up 18%. That's a pretty good number. Importantly, the trading statement said the growth was driven by strong performance of the spring-summer fashion and facilitated by an investment in digital. Here's the money shot. Reflecting changing consumer behaviour, said the statement, footfall was soft, offline grew strongly online. Digital was having an impact, and why it's worked is that Angela, their CEO, has been very smart. She was quoted recently saying that consumer data will be the biggest differentiator in the next 2 to 3 years. Whoever unlocks the reams of data and uses it will win. She went further. She said, look, most of our employees and our customers are under 30. So why not use the smart 30-somethings inside the company to actually help us drive our new direction? So she set up 2 councils, and the whole article on this is online. She set up a thing called the Strategic Innovation Council, and she got the young things to basically dream about what was next. She then set up the senior execs who said, we're going to execute that vision. So she was smart enough to say, I don't have all the answers, but my own staff are the ones that are using this. They're the millennials rather. They're the ones that are actually going to help us drive our strategy. So she has got an 18% increment in revenue. One way is because she is using her own people to improve. And finally, looking at what you need to do, the sort of things that you can actually use social and social business for. Finding and connecting the right sort of person. I've talked about some of the tricks there. Streamline the assessment and hiring. I mean, there is a massive information on me out there. I've got 26,000 tweets. I've got 600 blog posts. You can find a lot about me just by cruising around my digital profile. Engaging and retaining new hires. This is the onboarding process, getting that community internally to actually bring them together as a community. And also using recommendations. It's not like the email going around, anyone that might be useful for this job. I've been following this person who blogs. They're amazing. You should actually tap them on the shoulder, give them the e-tap and get them interested. So that's me. You can find me at Andrew Grill. Hopefully some of you have been tweeting what I've been saying, good or bad things. Happy to take any questions, but this is not something that's going to go away. And I want you to go from thinking that social media is Twitter, Facebook, marketing, into it goes into every single part of the company and will drive business impact. Thanks very much. Any questions at all?
Andrew, in the sort of larger international companies, who owns this space?
That's a really good question. I think going back to that continuum of where companies are, different people claim to own it. I think initially the comms and the marketing people own it because they're doing all the customer-facing things. Eventually, the smart C-level go, we need to have a governance around this and we actually need to appoint someone. It might be the COO, it might be the chief strategy or digital officer, but someone at a senior level has to be a sponsor to own this. They don't have the pain of going around saying, these 46 different things that we're doing, let's actually bring them together. Let's shut some things down. Those 22 Facebook accounts we have and 65 Twitter accounts, they're not going to help us. So I think it eventually has to go into the C-suite. In the report from Altimeter, what they say is that in the middle stages, you can actually get a centre of competence to actually have a group to actually help manage that. The challenge is, though, that if you leave that there too long, that becomes the help desk for social. But it needs to go into an organisation where someone on the board is actually saying, what's our digital strategy and how are we doing this? It's not just one group. But the challenge is initially there will be disparate groups that own it, and they set up a Twitter account years ago. Now, the practical things of that are, who has the keys to the Twitter account? When the excrement hits the ventilator, who do we go to that actually can tweet out everything's okay? There's a great example from Nestle a few years ago when Greenpeace decided to upset Nestle around the palm oil and Kit Kat. I actually met the people in person in Geneva that were involved in that, and why that went pear-shaped is the person that owned the Facebook page was at home. not in the office, and there was a disparate amount of communication. So it got down to a human level where they couldn't respond fast enough because the person who owned the Facebook page login was not on site. So that's why it needs to be owned centrally. And more recently, Twitter has been hacked. Associated Press had their Twitter account hacked, and the stock market dropped because someone said that there had been an attack at the White House. They learned very quickly that you need to actually have control of this from a central point of view. So not sure if I answered your question, but it will change over time. And the Altimeter report is very good at explaining where that needs to move over time. Ultimately, it needs to be a C-suite discussion. Who owns the strategy, and does the strategy fit with our objectives? If I had £1 for anyone that said, hey, we just need to find more likes and more followers, I say, why? How is that affecting your bottom line? Don't know, we just need more likes. No. When you watch a Channel 4 program called Fake Fans and Followers, which I blogged about, you'll realise you can go and buy followers and likes. If you give me $100, I can go and buy 20,000 followers overnight. I've not done that because, one, you'd see that I had a spike in followers and it would look really dumb. But secondly, that's unethical. It's like doctoring your CV. So do not look at follower count and fan count as a measure of authenticity, because they can and are gamed. That's my one tip for the day. Any other questions? Great question, by the way. Come on, hit me with a hard question, something I can't answer. No? Okay, well, look, thanks very much. Enjoy the rest of the day, and I'm here afterwards, and I'm happy to email the slides and the video to anyone that's interested. Thanks very much.